Hey guys, it's Tealus here, back on the Fellhammer for the second video in the two-part video series, looking at the brand new class and specialization known as Havoc Demon Hunter. Demon Hunters in general being the class, and Havoc being the specialization. Havoc is, of course, the DPS specialization for a Demon Hunter. The other specialization that they have, which is Vengeance, is going to be their tank spec, which I hope to get to in due time, if within the next few weeks actually. In the first video we looked at all of the abilities that a Demon Hunter is getting in World of Warcraft Legion, and we've also looked at the artifact weapon that they are receiving in World of Warcraft Legion. And so this video will be dedicated to the PvP and PvE talents. Now, just so you guys know, a little bit different from how I've done the other videos. For the most part, I've never had to explain anything that I feel you guys should already know in terms of, you know, what this talent does, or what it affects. What I'm trying to get at is, like, I will name a talent, and I'll say, oh, this talent affects this ability, and you guys already know those abilities, because they've been in the game for a very long time, etc. And so I've never really gone back through and kind of shown you passives, etc. For the most part, unless there's an interesting passive out there, and then I'll try and show it. In this video, I'm going to be kind of going back and forth between the spell book and the talents, so that I can kind of refresh your memory on what these abilities are, because every single one of these abilities that's coming with a Demon Hunter is brand new. So I just want to let you know that's how I'm doing things a little bit different as I go through all these PvE and PvP talents with a Demon Hunter. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the PvE talents first. First, basically with a Demon Hunter, you start at level 98, and so you'll get your talents at 99, then 100, 102, 104, 106, 108, 110. So it's not going to be till 110 that you have a full talent bar, whereas everyone else in the game is going to have a full talent already by level 100. So it's something that's a little bit different that you're going to have to deal with, but hey, I mean, you're getting to start off at level 98, so you really shouldn't complain that much about it anyways. So, with that being said, in the first tier, the 99 tier, we have Fell Mastery. Now, I incorrectly said in the first video that basically you got 25 Fury when you used Fell Rush. That is incorrect. This passive is what gives that extra boost. Now, Fell Rush, in case you have forgotten, Fell Rush is your dash. It is your 10-second dash that is right there. So this is what Fell Mastery will be affecting. And if I actually hit a target as I did there, I actually gain 25 Fury. But that is only if you have this talent activated. Second talent we have here is known as Chaos Strike, or sorry, Chaos Cleave, and it allows your Chaos Strike to hit another target. As I mentioned in the first video, Chaos Strike is kind of like your single target ability. This is your main single target damage, whereas something like Demon's Bite is your Fury generator. Chaos Strike is going to be your main damage component for a single target. So this gives you a little cleave aspect to it. So I'm going to go ahead and, whoops, I was trying to build up some Fury there, and I accidentally pressed Fell Rush. So I'm going to build up my Fury here with Demon's Bite, and then I'll go ahead and use Chaos Strike, and you'll see it will hit 2 targets instead of just 1. And that jump-in demon you saw there is part of the artifact tree. We went over that in the last video. But just showing you off the cool little cleave you have here. It kind of reminds me of Heart Strike a little bit. It's not like a full cleave, like it's not like all enemies in front of you. It's just one additional target. To be honest, I don't see this being as popular. I could be wrong. Maybe this will be popular in something like a PvE raid in which you are facing a low number of AoE targets. Like, you know, maybe it's like a PvE raid where it's like a boss split into 3 different people, and that's where Chaos Cleave can maybe come into use. However, I would expect Blind Fury to be the option here, and Blind Fury increases the duration of I-Beam by 50%. So, in case you've forgotten what I-Beam is kind of the one where you transform into your demonic form, and you kind of just shred them with an I-Beam. I don't really know how else to describe it. Transform into a demon, and then you just like shoot green fire out of your eyes, so to say. So, There you go once again, using a wrong ability
I
to
need
generate my rage here. So I'm going to build it up here, and then I'm going to use I-Beam, and you'll see that it will last longer now, as opposed to what it did before. So that means you're going to be dealing more damage across. And your anguish on top of that, which I believe comes from your, just so we can double check and make sure, comes from your weapons, Anguish of the Deceiver, is going to be increased because of having that extra damage. If you remember here, each time I-Beam deals damage to a target, it applies the Anguish. When Anguish expires, it deals 10,000 chaos damage to the victim per application. So having I-Beam able to be channeled longer allows for more of those stacks to tick up. So we're going to go ahead and build this up here just so you see it real quick again. And then I'm going to use I-Beam here again, and we're going to see just how many stacks I actually get on this target here. Use it right here. And I got up to 14 stacks. Before, I remember I could only get up to 9 stacks. So getting up to 14 stacks means more damage burst that I'm going to be able to get out of that. Personally, in this tier, I believe you're going to see PvPers either take Fell Mastery, definitely for the dash with the damage, or they're going to take Blind Fury, and then PvEers likely, unless there is a niche for them to use Chaos Cleave, will probably use Blind Fury. In the 100 tier, we have Prepared, trying to bring out the Illidan lines in there, which reduces the cooldown of Vengeful Retreat by 10 seconds and generates 40 Fury over 5 seconds if you damage at least one enemy with Vengeful Retreat. So, if you have forgotten, Vengeful Retreat is your disengage as a Fell Hunter. So I have it here, I'm going to go ahead and use it here. I'm going to back up right there, and as you can see, I'm actually generating Fury because I was able to hit a target. And it is now 10 seconds less, so now it's a 15-second cooldown. So now you have a 15-second cooldown on mobility, plus your Fell Rush to be able to dash around. It makes things interesting. So it's an option here for you to use. The second ability here is going to be Demon Blades, which replaces your Demon's Bite, which is your main Fury generator. Your auto attacks have a 75% chance to deal additional shadow damage and generate Fury. So basically, this is, as I mentioned in the first video, if you were to put warriors and rogues on a line, you put rogues on the far left and warriors on the far right, Windwalker falls in the middle there, kind of toward the rogue end. Whereas warriors, demon hunters fall in there a little bit towards the warrior end. And that's specifically because demon hunters deal with fury, and then whereas windwalkers deal with energy and chi creation, etc., which is more like a rogue. Now what this does is it puts you even closer to a warrior and further away from, say, a monk. So, you have rogue, then you have monk, and then you have a warrior on that line, and Demon Hunter falls in between that Windwalker monk and that warrior. Basically, what this ability does is it pulls you away from that Windwalker monk, which relies so much on active abilities to create chi. That was the whole point of Windwalker monks, was to be able to get away from auto attacks and be more towards about active mitigation. Active abilities to create your resource spending. And it puts you more towards a warrior, in which a lot of your auto attacks can instead just go ahead and create your abilities instead. However, do take note that if you're doing this, you are sacrificing the ability to just create, use abilities to actually kind of grow your fury over time, which to me makes it basically gives you some downtime. This could be a PvE increase, and so that's why I can see people taking it. But personally for me, and especially in like maybe a PvP environment, this is not something that I would personally want to take. The last option here is Demonic Appetite. It is a passive. Chaos Strike has a chance to spawn a lesser soul fragment, and consuming any soul fragment grants 30 fury. If you've forgotten what soul fragment is, I'll go ahead and pull this up. This is a passive. Shattered souls. Killing an enemy sometimes create a soul fragment that is consumed when you approach it, healing you for 25% maximum health and generating 30 fury. If the soul fragment came from a demon, you'll deal 20% increased damage for 15 seconds. So basically, this gives more opportunities for soul fragments. So, and this is off of your Chaos Strike. So let's go ahead and use Demon Bite to get some fury up here. And then I will use, and as you can see right there, the little purple right there is the soul fragment. And that is what gives me the extra little boost there. in my Fury generation. So that is something they should automatically go to, but maybe these specific demonic appetites they do not specifically go to. So I'm gonna use this here again, see if I can get another fragment to go up and see it. It looks like that time it did go straight to me. So it will depend. I need to actually get a situation in which it's far enough away from me so I can actually see and show you the difference between the two. And there it is in the far back. So you actually do have to pick it up. So it looks like, to my knowledge, lesser soul fragments, you're going to actually have to pick it up. But for regular soul fragments, it says that it's consumed when you approach it. So I'm assuming that all soul fragments, it just happened that in the first video I happened to always be close enough so that I never had to deal with actually picking it up. But you actually do have to pick up all your soul fragments. So basically, this allows your Chaos Strike to drop more soul fragments. As you can see, there's one to the right here. And I actually had a pretty large range there picking it up. It was about 5 yards of picking it up. So this gives you more Fury regeneration. It's really going to be up to the PvEers to find out which one actually will give you more Fury generation. Prepared is going to be something that's really truly only PvP oriented. I do not see PvEers using really Prepared much at all. And then Demon Blades is something I really see more PvE oriented. So Prepared PvP, Demon Blades more PvE, and the Demonic Appetite is something that probably will be interchangeable between both. In the third tier, we have Fell Blade, which you charge to your target and deal 89,000 fire damage. Demon's Bite has a chance to reset the cooldown on your Fell Blade. So let's go ahead and use Fell Blade. As you can see right there, I just dash into the target, which is pretty cool. It gives you another charge. So you now have the 2 charges from Fell Rush, and then you have one on top of that with Fell Blade. 15-second cooldown, doesn't cost anything. 15-yard range, so it's kind of small, but it's another option. And then on top of that, your Demon's Bite, which is what you use to actually build it up, will give the option to kind of reset it. Now, if I have Demon Blades, I'm assuming this means that your auto attacks will have a chance to reset it. It doesn't say right here, but I'm going to guess that your auto attacks have a chance to reset it. Let's see if we can get auto attacks to reset this here. There we go. It reset there. So your auto attacks with Demon Blades will have a chance to reset Fell Blade if you can no longer use it because you've chosen Demon Blades to replace your what would be normally Demon's Bite. So let's go back off of that. Let's switch to First Blood. Reduces the Fury cost of Blade Dance by 20 and increases its damage to 175,000 against the first target struck. So this turns this basically turns your AoE ability here into being a more effective power against single target damage. This is going to be a single target, damage boost, because basically you're dealing more damage, but it only costs 15 Fury. I believe this is a huge buff, and I'm not sure. I don't see PvEers really taking Fell Blade. So this is something that I can see PvEers taking, because you're going to be dealing more damage with this, and it only costs 15. It's almost 1/3 of what it costs for Chaos Strike, which is your main single target DPS. So this may be, I don't know, this may be something that people choose to take. I'm not quite sure. The other option here is going to be Bloodlet, which is throw glaive causes target to bleed for 190% of the damage inflicted over 10 seconds. If this effect is reapplied, any remaining damage will be added to the new Bloodlet. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. And your throw glaive is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. 86,000 physical damage. So it ends up being a damage boost. Basically, what's going to happen for PvEers is that throw glaive will be something. Taking this talent will probably allow you to put throw glaive into a rotation. Otherwise, I don't see it in a rotation. So this is another tier. I really only see Fell Blade here at the beginning. I see this only being a PvP only talent. I could be wrong, but this is something that I really only see as a PvP talent. And then these other two I see are PvE talents, something that someone can take to increase their damage. First Blood will be more of a burst, but really, in my opinion, the real great part about Blade Dance is going to be more than 100% dodge for 1 second. The great Demon Hunters are going to be able to time that correctly and use it to their advantage, and that's what they'll be using that for, and then they'll be sticking to Chaos Strike for the most time when they're trying to single target someone down. So this is something that I see more as PvE, and then Bloodlet and Fellblade are something that I could see. Fellblade is something in PvP, and then Bloodlet something used in both. So realistically, it mirrors the 100 tier in that both of the right talents are something that I can see on both sides of the spectrum. The left side being PvP talents that I expect, and then the middle being more PvE oriented talents. So let's move into the 104 tier. First, we have, well, let's get to the ones that do not have long cooldowns. Let's get to the middle one here, Desperate Instincts. It replaces Blur, and you automatically trigger Blur when you fall below 35% health. This effect cannot occur more than every 30 seconds. So just so you remember, Blur is a 1 minute cooldown, and it is a defensive cooldown. It increases your chance to dodge by 50% and reduces all damage taken by 35% for 10 seconds. So this, takes away your control over Blur, but it will automatically trigger every time you fall below 35% health. That's really just going to have to be a choice in PvP. That's really kind of where you're going to see it as a choice in PvP. The other option here is Soul Rending. You gain 100% Leech when Metamorphosis is active. This is something that I really see only PvPers tanking, and it's going to be, oh my gosh, I'm starting to get beat. Use Metamorphosis now. Gain some big Leech back to get my health back, and then when I drop out of Metamorphosis, I will actually be at a more reasonable health than I was when I first went in. The last option here is going to be Nether Walk. You slip into the Nether, increasing movement speed by 100% and becoming immune to damage, but unable to attack. Lasts 5 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and use this here, and we will use this now. And I believe this is basically stealth, and so I move really quickly, but it's only a 5-second stealth. So it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. Lets me, just get out of range of everything and get away. It's kind of a disengage option. The 3 talents on this tier are really kind of more PvP oriented. If I had to trigger which one would be the PvE one that you would take, I would most likely be Desperate Instincts by far, just to help out with the raid just a little bit. It could also be Nether Walk if you are, crafty, and maybe you have to avoid damage that would be like a huge burst damage, like I can't even give a good example. Maybe Syndragosa back in Wrath of the Lich King, you had to I think it was Syndragosa. You had to hide behind like an ice wall when they did a big burst of damage. If a Demon Hunter times it right, they can just use Nether Walk for that big damage burst, and then they're quicker back into the action and dealing their damage than if they had to go hide or stack up somewhere. So this could be used in a PvE setting. So I can see these first two being used in PvE, but for the most part these are more PvP talents. On the third tier we have Momentum. Fell Rush and Vengeful Retreat increase damage done by 20% for 4 seconds. So this is kind of useful, especially since most of the time you're going to be dashing in anyways. And so this can end up being useful because of that. That's a decent amount. Lasts for 4 seconds. So you really have to have your burst up really quickly, and you have to make sure that your rage, your fury, excuse me, is up high enough for you to actually get some use out of this. In which, in that case, something like Prepared or Fell Rush becomes really useful to have. Fell Mastery. Both of these become useful if you combine them together and then maybe use it with Momentum. Then maybe it can have some PvE aspects as well as being PvP aspects. So that's something to think about there. The next one we have here, let's do Fell Eruption. Impales the target for 221,000 chaos damage and stuns them for 2 seconds. Inflicts an additional 100 damage against targets permanently immune to stuns. This is a really powerful option, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this as being an option for both PvPers and PvEers. This is really strong. So let's go ahead and use this right here. As you can see right there, it's just like a rock formation that kind of pops out. That was really difficult to see, so let's go ahead and go to this imprisoned Forge Fiend here and see if we can get a better idea of how this will look. I'm going to build this up here, and then this thing's on a 35-second cooldown, so it should come up pretty soon. But basically, the fact that, you know, targets permanently immune to stuns are going to be your raid bosses, so it's going to do, like, 100% increased damage. That's a lot of damage for just 10 Fury. And it's a 20-yard range. That's pretty good. So, let me go ahead and just build this up, and it's now ready. We'll go ahead and use it now. As you can see there, it doesn't really show up very well, but it's at the bottom there. It's just this little kind of spike, fell spike that kind of shows up. But that is, just to compare how much damage it does, slice your target for 128,000 damage is what Chaos Strike, and that's 40 Fury. And then this is 221,000 damage, and then if you increase that by 100%, make it, you know, 442,000 damage in a raid setting, on a 35-second cooldown for only 10 Fury, that's pretty good. Your other option here is going to be Nemesis. It is a 2-minute cooldown, increases the damage you inflict against the target by 15% for 1 minute. When the target is slain, you will inflict 15% additional damage against all creature types matching the original target, humanoid or dragonkin, for the remaining duration. So, 1 minute cooldown. So this basically says that if I kill someone, I'm going to deal 15% increased damage. If I kill that person within, and it says when the target is slain, so that doesn't mean you have to get the last blow. When that target dies, so let's say I'm in a PvP situation and a healer is at 5%, and we slay him, and I was able to get Nemesis on them right before this happened. That means I now have 15% increased damage for, let's say I slayed him within 5 seconds. That means for the next 55 seconds, I have 15% increased damage against the entire battleground. This can be really powerful. I do not seeing this probably, I don't know. I don't know how this will work out in PvE. It's going to be, you know, between Fel, it's really going to be between Fel Eruption and Nemesis. I don't see this combination of Fel Mastery, Prepared, and Momentum being useful enough in PvE. It can be something that's good in PvP, but really PvE is going to be between Fel, Eruption, and Nemesis. We'll leave that to the theory crafters, but this can be really strong in a rated battleground setting. I don't see it being as popular maybe in an arena. I could be wrong, but this is something to look out for. So I'm going to just go ahead and show it to you with this imp. As you can see right there, it's just a basic buff on the target. Once again, I keep using, I need to just take that off the one key there. So I stopped using it. And it's a 1 minute debuff. And I continue to deal more damage. And if I were to actually kill this imp, it would spread to all these other imps for the rest of the duration that it has. So if I were to kill it like right now, for the next 37 seconds, I would have 15% damage increased against all of these imps, which is pretty cool. In the 108 tier, we have Master of the Glaive. Throw Glaive now has 2 charges and snares all enemies hit by 50% for 6 seconds. So here's your Throw Glaive. And then when you combine that with something like Bloodlet, that becomes pretty powerful. Think about that in PvE as well. Be able to toss out 2 of those every 10 seconds. So every 5 seconds you basically have one of these. You can throw out one of these every 5 seconds, ricochet to multiple targets, deal AoE damage. Basically, this is an AoE option in PvE that I see PvEers taking as it's an AoE option, something like this. The second option here is Unleash Power. Removes the Fury cost of Chaos Nova and reduces its cooldown by 33%. If you've forgotten what Chaos Nova is the kind of the eruption that stuns everybody in the area. So this is something that PvEers won't take. They won't take Unleashed Power because it's really not important to them. It doesn't do enough damage, and it's a stun. It just wouldn't take it. But it's something PvEers may like. It brings the cooldown down to 40 seconds. You no longer have to cost. It no longer costs any Fury to use this. And honestly, it'll depend. If a PvPer feels like they have enough sticking power to stick on the target, they won't worry about Master of the Glaive. It won't be that important. and they'll instead go with the combo with getting Chaos Nova, and then they can use I-Beam on top of that. Considering I-Beam has a 45-second cooldown, it puts them both kind of in line with one another, and allows them to do that combo together to really deal some damage, just some huge burst damage on the target. That's what I-Beam really does. That's what I-Beam does best, is having a lot of burst damage on the target. So, I mean, let me go ahead and switch out of this real quick and switch to Unleash Power, and I'll show you basically what I'm saying. Basically, with Unleash Power, I'm able to build up my Fury here, all the way to max, and then I'll stun everybody, and then I can quickly use I-Beam while they're all stunned, and they can't get away from it. Sucks for them. So that's something that's really powerful that could be used to your advantage. The last option here is Demon Reborn. All your cooldowns are reset when you invoke Metamorphosis. So, to be honest, this isn't really a great talent in my opinion, because Metamorphosis is on a 4-minute cooldown, and most of your abilities, especially your main like single target damage abilities, are no cooldown, or they have low cooldown. Yes, this can affect things like Nether Walk, or your not Nether Walk, but your Blur, Darkness. It can affect those abilities, so your defensive capabilities. So, but for the most part, when you're entering Metamorphosis form, I mean, that's a huge damage burst. Entering Metamorphosis form to get more escapability just doesn't seem very good to me. I mean, the only big cooldown you would want is I-Beam, and that's easy enough. It's only got a 45-second cooldown. We're not talking about like 2-3 minute cooldown. That's something that you can line up pretty well. So in all honesty, I don't like Demon Reborn. Maybe I'm wrong and people don't understand, and I'm not acknowledging the potential of this, but I just don't see it as being as popular, because I feel like if you're going to use Metamorphosis form, you should be using it offensively, not as a defensive, to get your defensive cooldowns back up, because those are the only things with real significant cooldowns. The only, I guess you could say the only exception to that would be this Nemesis, if you have this talent. Otherwise, in this tier, definitely, I think Master of the Glaive is going to be the only PvE option, maybe, in this tier. It could be Demon Reborn. They could be forced into Demon Reborn, because that would give you a cooldown on, I believe, a instant reset on your artifact weapon ability. Chaos Blades. I think that's... Fury of the Illidari, your artifact ability there. So it could give you an immediate like reset on that. So that's maybe where it can come to play. So PvEers may be using Demon Reborn, but I just don't see PvPers taking it at all. It doesn't make too much sense to me. So in this last tier, we have Demonic. I-Beam causes you to enter Demon Form for 5 seconds after it finishes dealing damage. I love Demon Form, so being able to do this is actually pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and use this here, build this up, and then I'm going to use I-Beam, and then I'm still in Demon Form for a little bit and able to use my Demon Form abilities, which is pretty cool. So I personally like it. I think it's pretty cool. Now, just so you guys know, Metamorphosis, what your Demon Form does, basically it empowers your abilities. So, as we looked in the last video, really doesn't change Blade Dance too much. It does more damage. The real change is in Chaos Strike, which is your single target damage. So, if you're able to get several Chaos Strikes off, the Fury cost being, I think, the same in the new Demon Form, we can go ahead and double check it right here, just to make sure, so I don't give you misinformation. Use I-Beam right here, and Annihilation still costs 4 Fury, so I don't know if it will be popular enough for it to be usable in PvE. For PvP, it could be, I'm not quite sure, but to be honest, 5 extra seconds of Demon Form, I'm not sure how that's actually going to translate well. It really only benefits Annihilate more than it does the extra, I think, whatever Blade Dance's improved ability is. I can't quite remember it, because Blade Dances, it reduces its cooldown from like 9.16 seconds to like 7.28 or something like that. So it reduces 2 seconds off of it, but you only get the extra demon form for like 5 seconds. So we're talking about minimal change there. Next option is Fell Barrage. At your command, unleash Fell, inflicting 80,000 chaos damage to your target and nearby enemies for each charge. Max 5 charges. Your damaging attacks have a chance to regenerate a charge. So let's go ahead and just use this here. There you go, right there. So it used all of them, by the way. So it uses them all in succession. So you can only use one if you only have one up, or you can use all of them at once. Just looking back here, let's just take a look at just how much damage it did. 94,000, 94,000, 94,000 chaos damage. I mean, this is a lot of damage. To give you a good comparison, Demon's Bite is doing 42,000, and Chaos Strike criticals are dealing 142,000. So that kind of gives you an idea. I'll use it once again right here, and I can move while it's doing it, and it's AoE damage. It's pretty powerful. So considering it has 5 charges, so it's basically in PvE or in PvP, it's basically a 2.5 minute cooldown. If you want to really get full burst out of it, you can still move around with it and so forth. This can be actually a really powerful option to take. And once again, and I've said this I know several times, and that's because the class is so brand new, it's really going to be up to the theory crafters to kind of figure out what's the best option to use here. In the last talent here, we have Chaos Blades, which Chaos Blades increases damage done by 10% for 12 seconds. While active, your auto attack deals 200% increased damage and causes chaos damage. So we'll just go up here and start attacking, and you'll see right here, there's the buff to it. Very simple. You're dealing more damage, you're actually dealing chaos damage, so it does a lot more. It's very unappealing in terms of what it looks like for a 2-minute cooldown. In all honesty, I don't really like this, to be completely honest. It only lasts for 12 seconds. And the only reason I can see this really being potent is when it's like used in combination with like Nemesis, Chaos Blades, and then maybe Demon Reborn in a PvE setting. And then even then we have all those stacked together. I don't see it there. I don't see how great it's going to be. I see Bloodlet and Master the Glaive being better in PvE than doing that triple combination there. Instead you can get Fell Eruption and Fell Barrage, and I have a feeling that that would deal more damage. Yes, it clutters up your rotation, but I mean, with the exception of I-Beam for the most part, your rotation is going to be Demon's Bite and Chaos Strike when you're talking about single target for a Demon Hunter. So, if anything, you got plenty of room to do stuff in your rotation and so forth to be able to do that kind of stuff. So, not really impressed by this. 2-minute cooldown's pretty long. I would rather have Fell Barrage. Switching back to it. Alright, I gotta wait for Chaos Blaze to actually be off of cooldown. But I will try Demon Reborn and see what it does with Fell Barrage, just so you guys have an idea of whether this will work or not. What I'm trying to see is if I activate Metamorphosis, if it will regenerate all 5 charges of Fell Barrage. I'm not quite sure if it will or not. So it's almost off cooldown, got a couple of seconds left, and then we'll take a look and see. So let's go ahead and switch back to it, and I'm going to go ahead, and I have Demon Reborn, so I'm going to go ahead and use all of the charges there. Now I'm going to use Metamorphosis, and yes, all 5 charges are back, so I can use it twice. So that is something that I think will be much more useful than using Chaos Blades. I'm not a big fan of it. Demonic is something more I can see maybe in a PvP setting, but for right now, I think in the 110 tier, Fell Barrage is your best option for both PvP and PvE by far. I think it's really good, really powerful, and it would be my selection in terms of what abilities to keep on your and what to use in both settings. Just because of 30-second cooldown, this gives you burst potential in PvP, and then in PvE, This is a channeled ability that you can wait for 5 charges before you can use, or you can use it whenever you need to because of the different charge rates and so forth. And it's flexible, which is really nice to have that flexibility inside a PvE setting, depending on what the raid boss may want to do. So, with that, that was very long. As I said, I wanted to go back through the abilities as we went through this so that you guys understood which abilities I was talking about. With that, let's go ahead and go into the honor talents. These I will not be able to show you because it requires me to be in a BG, and BGs are really difficult to get into, especially when it's late at night. And I would have to be changing talents all the time, which would take a really long time, so that's why I cannot do that. It also is an uncontrolled setting, so I would have difficulty narrating at the same time. Now, how PvP works in World of Warcraft Legion, basically you start at level 1 and then you move all the way through level 50. It's like Call of Duty. As you start at level 1, you'll get a Gladiator's Medallion, and then you'll move your way all the way on to level 10 where you'll get Detainment. And then from there, at level 13, you'll get Adaptation, and you'll move all the way down to Rain from above, and then you will do the same thing again on the last tier, with the last one, Mana Break, coming on level 46. At level 50, you can Prestige, as you would in Call of Duty, and start all the way back at level 1, and have to build all your talents up again. You get nice cosmetics, horses, mounts, whatever. So it's basically going to be up to you. Do I want the pretty cool stuff, flashy stuff for me to mess around with, or do I just want to stay at 50 and not have to deal with it anymore? So, with that all out of the way, taking a breath there, let's look at the first tier. This is the first tier, the same for all classes across World of Warcraft Legion. This is your trinket tier. Basically, when you go into a BG, you're given a trinket for the first time. It is like an heirloom trinket. It is your 3-minute cooldown trinket. The first option here is Gladiator Trinket, which replaces that Honorable Medallion, which is your heirloom 3-minute cooldown trinket, with this 2-minute Gladiator's Medallion trinket. This gives you more control over it at a quicker rate. This is your basic trinket that you guys know on live. The second option here is going to be Adaptation. All loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or more will activate your Honorable Medallion spell, but only causes it to incur a 60-second cooldown. So this is my favorite choice for PvP. PvP. I've done that in like at least half of these videos. For DPS. And that's basically because it gives a 60-second cooldown. If you absolutely must use your Honorable Medallion, you still can. However, your Adaptation will go on a 3-minute cooldown as opposed to it being a 60-second cooldown. So that's just something to take note, but this is more of my favorite option for DPS, whereas Gladiator Medallion is something that I would lean towards as a healer. And then Relentless is something that I really only see tanks using, because it replaces your Honorable Medallion, and the duration of incoming crowd control effects is reduced by 25%. So unless you have a really good ability to heal through crowd control effects, or you are tank enough, or you're able to get out of crowd control effects through other ways, you have other options. I really don't see this option being taken, unless you're like a tank or maybe a Resto Druid. In the second tier, this is the melee tier, the melee DPS tier. First we have Hardiness. While above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. You have Reinforced Armor, health increased by 10%. And then you have Sparring. Physical melee attacks have a 20% chance to be blunted, dealing 50% reduced damage. This is basically the same across all PvE, all melee DPS classes. The bottom 4 tiers are dealing with Demon Hunters specifically, sometimes just Havoc Demon Hunters specifically. First we have Solitude. Passive increases your damage by 15% and attack speed by 15% when there are no allies within 15 yards. So if you are trying to roll it alone, you get nice buffs. I don't really suggest this though, to be honest. Attack speed is not as big of a deal, considering that your active Fury generation is through abilities. Unless, of course, you decide to take the talent where you have Demon Blades, and then your attack speed definitely becomes more important. But for the most part, you do get 15% damage on top of that, but overall, I'm not sure about this talent in a rated setting. Maybe in duels, yes, but in a rated setting or just a regular BG setting, I'd rather be near my team than off going it alone. You have Glimpse. This is the second option. You automatically gain Blur for 1.5 seconds after you use Vengeful Retreat. So Vengeful Retreat, just so you remember, is going to be your Disengage, just as I show right there. That gives you Blur for 1.5 seconds. Blur, let me go ahead and switch off the netherwork so I can show you blur. Um, oh, that also gets rid of it here. Blur increases your chance to dodge by 50% and reduces all damage taken by 35% for 10 seconds. So this honorable, PvP talent glimpse gives you it for 1.5 seconds. I really don't feel like that's enough, to be honest. I don't know, I would expect it to be a little bit larger than that. The last option in this tier is going to be Cover of Darkness. Increases the chance for you and your allies to avoid damage while within the darkness effect by 50%. If you have forgotten what darkness is it's another kind of defensive cooldown for demon hunters. It's something that's more useful for demon hunters for their raid setting. And basically summons darkness around you in an 8-yard radius, cloaking friendly targets and granting 15% chance to avoid all damage from an attack. So this basically increases that by 50%. I believe that will bring it up to 30% to avoid all damage from an attack. Overall, I think this entire tier is rather underwhelming. I'm not sure what I would choose, to be honest. You know, Cover of Darkness is more of a kind of a group setting, maybe arena. Glimpse. I just don't think 1.5 seconds is really worth much, especially when you're retreating. Unless, of course, you're doing what I do several times, which is retreating and then charging back in, and then it can be useful. So, probably, if you consider that, I'd probably be taking Glimpse, even though I think 1.5 seconds is a little pathetic. In the third tier, and then you guys already know my opinion on Solitude, it's just, I like being near my teammates. In the fourth tier, we have Unending Hatred. Anytime you're a victim to magical effect, you gain 5 Fury. So, anybody doing magical damage, you gain 5 Fury. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. And just going through the list of classes in the game, you have Death Knights, in which both of those classes deal magical damage in some form. Both of their DPS specs. You have Druids, which you have 1 magical, 1 physical. You've got Mages, which is all magical. You have Warlocks, which is all magical. Rep Paladins, in which a lot of their abilities are going to be holy damage, so it'll be magical. You have Priests, all magical. You have Hunters, in which a portion of their abilities, a little bit of their abilities will be magical. For the most part, they're physical. Them and Rogues. However, Rogues actually do have a lot of magical damage in them now, with Shadow damage being on, I think, Subtlety Rogues. And then, if you're facing off Assassination, a lot of nature damage there. And then, of course, Shamans are loaded with magical damage, both an enhancement and an elemental. And then Warriors are physical. So really, out of the specs in the game, all the other, for the most part, you have, what, 3 specs? Really only 2 specs if you count Hunter and Warrior, and then like half of Rogue that are really like big time physical. The rest are all magical. So this is really a lot of fury that you should be able to regenerate. Now, if they're talking, they say magical effect, they could be referring to just dots or something like that, like a magical freeze effect or an actual magical debuff. They say magical effect, so it could be referring to, maybe a frost from a DK being a magical effect. I'm not quite sure if that's a physical effect or a magical effect, but they could be referring to something that it's a magical debuff as opposed to actual magic damage. I don't know why they say magical effect, because that's kind of makes a little bit vague which you're going for. Hopefully they correct the tooltip to be like magical debuff, in which it'll be pretty clear what they're referring to there, or magical damage, in which they would be referring to there. Your second option is going to be Reverse Magic. Instant, it's 30-second cooldown, dispels all harmful magical effects from yourself and all nearby allies within 10 yards, and sends them back to their original caster. So I believe this is going to be dealing with all dot damage. And this makes it more clear that this will be dealing with dot damage as well, for the most part. So if you have dots on yourself, I believe maybe diseases possibly will be in that category. I'm not sure what they refer to as a magical effect. If they're only talking about like pyroblast, ignite damage, that actually just being a magical dot, or they're also adding in something like Warlock Curses as well, or maybe it's only Imlay. I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of different effects out there, and I'm not quite sure what they are, kind of deciding in that. That's something that I would have to test in PvP, which I haven't been able to. But what I can do is I can go into a battleground later and try, and then I can come and post in comments to see what difference it actually is. But just know, I'm not quite sure what they are encompassing in the magical effects category, whether it's all dots or, all magical dots, so anything that isn't a bleed, or they're talking about, basically anything that comes from a mage, or they're literally specifically only about the magical category of effects being applied. So I personally hope that it's like, it's kind of like I would expect it to be something like all magic effects, so like all curses, magic, anything with a dot type like that, anything a moon king can dish out, anything a mage can dish out, anything a warlock can dish out, I would expect to be affected by this, and then bleeds wouldn't be affected by this, but I could be wrong. The last one here is Eye of Leotharis. I think I pronounced that right. Instant 45-second cooldown. You keep a watchful eye over the enemy. Whenever they cast a harmful spell, they suffer 5% of their health in shadow damage and refresh the duration of Eye of Leotharis. So, this is basically you get into combat with someone. They have to wait for 6 seconds for this to shut off, or else they're going to continue to suffer damage from this. So this is an interesting option. I think you have all interesting options in this tier. Probably I would go with reverse magic, though Unending Hatred could be interesting depending on, how they're defining magical effects. I'll have to look into that more. I'm sorry that I do not actually have that specific information for you here. In the 5th tier, we have Awaken the Demon Within. If you reach 50% health, you automatically gain Metamorphosis for 8 seconds. This effect has a 1-minute cooldown. In addition, the duration of Metamorphosis will be refreshed up to a maximum of 8 seconds while at or below 20% health. So, it's like you will have permanent demon form to somewhat if you drop below 20% health, which is actually pretty cool. Even though demon form really doesn't give you any like health bonus, it's just damage bonus. However, that's pretty cool, and it's only a 1-minute cooldown. So if you like your demon form, pick this thing. You'll have it all the time, which is pretty cool. Second option here is using Vengeful Retreat grants a charge of Fel Rush. So this actually works for me since I like to use Fel Rush in addition to my Vengeful Retreat. So I mean, just basically this is an option here. So the only problem is that if I already have 2 charges of Fel Rush, then I mean, when I use the Vengeful Retreat, I will have already, like, I'd just be wasting a charge. So I don't know how much I would like that as an option. The last option here is Pinning Glare. I-Beam reduces target's movement speed by 70% for 4 seconds. This is actually pretty cool, considering that I-Beam, if you remember, has a 20-yard range. I'm trying to remember exactly just how far we can actually do I-Beam. Let me get a little bit more here so I don't lose it here. Maybe right here. I can still hit them. That's a pretty awesome range for this. So if you're trying to snare someone down, Pinning Glare is what you want for that option. So I like Pinning Glare and Awaken the Demon Within in this one. Rushing Vault I don't really like as much as an option. Finally, this brings us to our last tier. I'm not gonna lie, my throat is starting to give out here. We have Detainment, which is a passive. Imprison can now be used on humanoids and beasts, and targets become immune to damage and healing while imprisoned. So, if you have forgotten what Imprison is, prisons a demon for 1 minute. Damage will cancel the effect, limit one target. It's only a 10-second cooldown. So, and it's instant. So, it'll now be used on humanoids and beasts, and targets become immune to damage and healing while imprisoned. However, do know that damage will cancel the effect. So, I guess you could say it's kind of like Ice Trap. No one can touch it. I could see a lot of PvP usage out of this. You have a rain from above, a 1-minute cooldown. You fly into the air out of harm's way. While floating, you gain access to Fell Lance, allowing you to deal damage to enemies below. This is really cool. This is really cool. It says while floating. I'm assuming that's going to be dealing with your ability to kind of glide in air. They don't actually state that here, but because they don't necessarily have a duration on this, it just says 1-minute cooldown. So, but I'm assuming this is your ability to glide. Maybe, hopefully, in the future they'll put into a tooltip. This is something else that I can check in terms of PvP and see how it actually affects, and I'll post it in the comments below so that you guys know. Lastly, there is Mana Break. Instant, 1.3-minute cooldown. Deals 42,000 chaos damage plus an additional 1% of the target's health in chaos damage per 2% of the target's missing mana. This is your healer killer, okay? Basically, the only classes that are really going to care about mana in World of Warcraft Legion are healers. So I cannot stress this enough. Do not bother using this ability unless you're using it on a healer. Because all the other classes, except for maybe Arcane Mage, will almost always have a full mana bar. There's just no point in it. There will be some off cases in which a Paladin will have a lower cooldown bar, like a Ret Paladin, maybe a Feral Druid. Very rare cases in which that will happen, and I don't even know if that will show up in your own, if that will actually show up in your UI, what their mana bar is, because their mana bar is so insignificant to them and what they do. But for the most part, this is targeted at healers, so just take note on that. This is something that you will be doing as a healer and nothing else. So, with that, that is all of the PvP and PvE talents. I know this took a long time. We have a brand new spec to cover, brand new class to cover. It's really interesting and a lot of fun. I have yet to see anyone in the game that has not enjoyed Havoc Demon Hunters or Demon Hunters in general. I see them a lot in BGs, and we're probably... Whoa! I don't know how that happened there, to be honest. There's a little bug there. But I expect to see a lot of them out here in World of Warcraft Legion, and it's going to be a lot of fun to play with them. I think they will be able to integrate them as well, I would say better than they did both Monks and with Death Knight. They're going to be able to integrate them better. So if you're worried about, you know, Demon Hunters entering the game and then breaking everything, I wouldn't worry about it. They have a lot of fun abilities. It is definitely one of my favorite melee classes, up there with Enhancement Shaman, Ret Paladin. So I hope you guys really like this video. There's a lot going on with Havoc Demon Hunters and Demon Hunters in general. We will be back at the Fellhammer again so that we can take a look at Vengeance Demon Hunter once I make sure that they're in a place in which I do not think that they're changing very much anymore. Otherwise, that is everything for this video on Havoc Demon Hunters. I hope to see you guys out there. Cheer us out.